Finding your main in Supervive is really easy. Look at Oath, see that he is hands down the coolest design in the game, skip the tutorial, and jump right into a match. Well, I should say it's easy until you get absolutely stomped and have no clue what's going on and blame it on your character. So how should you really go about finding your main in Supervive? Because in all seriousness, it's actually a really important yet difficult decision. Well, it all starts with getting real with yourself and asking yourself some important questions. What do you find fun? What are you good at? What do you struggle with? What are your goals? But in order to answer these, you have to have a basic understanding of the cast first. So what I suggest is to try to play a game on every single character in the game, or at the very least, play around in the practice tool. This will help you get a better idea of what you like, what you don't like, what feels good, and what each character's strengths and weaknesses are. No matter what though, it's about what character is fun. And remember that when you're playing Supervive. Don't make this game a chore on yourself. My biggest piece of advice is that above all else, when you finally go about trying to pick your main, pick the characters that you find are the most fun, as those will be the characters you devote the most time to. This means you'll most likely see more improvement in the long term. Ideally though, you want to try and pick a role to stick to, whether it be tankier characters, support or protector characters, controllers, or fighters. The meta isn't really defined right now, so just play what you like and do your best. Now, if you have done all of these steps and still don't know what you want, or just don't care and want my thoughts, let's take a look at every single character Supervive has to offer right now and talk about the type of player that will excel the most at each one of them. Starting off with the fighters, we have Bishop. I find Bishop to be one of the most challenging characters to learn in the game, but if you are up to the challenge, she can do some serious work. Why is she so difficult though? Well, she has to find the perfect balance between ranged combat and close-up melee combat, as she shoots rockets but also punches enemies, stunning them and dealing massive damage. This means that not only do you have to be able to aim fairly well, you also have to understand where to place yourself in a fight, which is a really difficult skill to pick up right away, all things considered. If you really want to play Bishop but aren't quite there yet, Joule might be an even better option, as they share similar playstyles. Joule has a bit more utility to choose from though. She functions by hitting a series of cooldowns to build up stacks of charge before she goes in for a killing blow with her dash. It's actually super fun how each one of her moves are very thoughtful and responsive. That's the problem that Bishop has. She just doesn't feel responsive and doesn't have as many options as Joule does. So Joule is a great place to start if that's what you're looking for. Next up, we have Brall, the token swordsman within Supervive. To be honest, if you see Brall and all you can think of in your head is fuck yeah, I'm gonna be so real with you, that's your sign. You are a Brall main. Brall is a very difficult character to pick up for new players because he has a lot, and I mean a lot, of combos. That shouldn't be a problem though if you're so distracted by how cool his sword looks. Yeah. So if you are willing to put the time in, Brall is seriously lethal. What I will say is that if you do have a strong fighting game background, he should actually come easy to you compared to a filthy Overwatch player like me. Are you the kind of player though that doesn't really care for those super sick aesthetics and prefers to play characters on the slightly goofier side? Well then, Felix is your guy. Felix the Firefox is a great character to start on because he's a bit on the tankier side, just wants to get in there, and is pretty forgiving to deal damage with, as he has a massive flamethrower. This doesn't mean that he is easy though, because the more experienced you get, the more you'll get punished for silly little mistakes. Honestly, the more I think about it, Felix might be one of the best characters to start on if you want to bridge the gap between being a bit tankier but don't want to give up that consistent damage. Ghost is very similar to Felix in the sense that he is consistent, responsive, and easier to understand than most of the other fighters in the game. Ghost is the perfect character if you got invited into the game by your friends that grind League and the only games you like to play are Call of Duty, CSGO, or Siege. Why? Because he has your stereotypical automatic rifle, dashes around, throws nades, and has a really easy to understand ultimate that is essentially just a really big Molotov. Ghost is a really good place to start if you don't care to be tanky and just want to focus on absolutely draining everyone's health bar, and I can't blame you because that shit is satisfying as fuck. If an assault rifle wasn't quite your style, don't worry, there are other ranged characters for you to try, like Shrike for example. Shrike is your standard sniper character. Super easy to understand, but not so easy to hit your shots with and can be a turnoff for a lot of people. She also has some cool abilities that scout out enemies and stun them as well to set up your shots, which is actually really fun. But if you want to lean more into the utility aspect of the game and are looking for a character kind of like Shrike with a little less focus on aim and a lot more focus on cooldown efficiency, we have Myth. On Myth, you have to time your shots and use your utility to set yourself up for success instead of just aiming, which I think is more deep and interesting, just a little bit more difficult off the rip. Seriously though, Myth is a deep and fun character to learn. Back to the tankier characters though, we have Kingpin. To be honest, if you like playing Roadhog in Overwatch, that's pretty much this guy just on crack. If you love pissing people off by hooking them through walls, play this guy. I honestly think he is super cool, but I know he will go down as one of the most hated characters in the game amongst the casual community. That being said, if you are confident in hitting your hooks and are willing to practice, you are going to straight up carry games, especially when first starting out and people don't really know how the hook works yet. Rounding out the fighters though, we have Shiv, who is also a character that will absolutely dominate and carry games once you get good enough with her. That being said, she is really hard to get that good with. Shiv isn't incredibly deep in terms of utility, but she is all about hitting every single shot. Shiv poses a serious threat to the enemy, but she will always be a fighter that absolutely dominates the lobby if you are good enough. Some players like that, some players don't, but if this sounds interesting to you, lock in Shiv. So that is all of the fighters in Supervive. If these characters don't seem interesting to you, do not worry, there are still more characters to go over, like protectors for example. Let's take Elluna, the celestial healing rabbit thing. Super easy to understand and embodies your quintessential support character. Elluna is like the Mercy of Supervive. Extremely consistent, reses her teammates effectively, but can also set up kills with her rooting right click. If you are new to gaming in general or prefer a much more supportive and chill playstyle, Elluna's the one for you. But if you want to live the life of an absolute Giga Chad, look nowhere else in this video than Oath. Robot Paladin by day, killer robot in game, Oath is such a deep and interesting yet challenging support tank hybrid combo. That means that he is not the shield character that just holds it up the whole time. Instead, he is the character that requires you to be both a frontline presence and a backline peeler through using the stuns his kit provides. The biggest thing I can say is that if you go into Oath thinking that he is the Reinhardt shield guy from Overwatch, you are going to be disappointed. But if you are going into it with a more reserved playstyle that punishes your enemies by setting up stuns for your team, now we're talking, try him out. Rounding out the protector list, we have Zeph, who is like the perfect mix between Elluna and Oath. He does a lot of healing, but Zeph also sets up his team by quickly repositioning them with his tornado and pulling enemies together with his grenades. He is much more active than the others and requires constant assessment of not only where the fight is, but also where the fight is going. I'm not really sure who this character is for though, but I do know that he is really strong in the right hands and is the most helpful to the team if optimized correctly, since his speed will keep the team alive for longer. Now, at long last, we have the controllers Celeste and Void. Celeste is super fun and has been a must pick in almost every single alpha test so far. If you want to be an asset to any team you find yourself on, Celeste is the pick. That is not the only reason to pick her though. She also has really forgiving damage to aim, a wall that gives your team tons of space, especially if you're trying to travel across the abyss, and the best zoning ultimate in the game currently. While she might not be the hardest mechanically, she definitely requires a very big and wrinkly brain to pull off. But if you just want to play her because she's hot, I can't blame you. Yeah, I said it. Void is the last character on the list and is a super fun one. He, in my opinion, has the most powerful ultimate in the game if you manage to hit it, as it is essentially a big black hole that stuns players and confirms kills. He also has a unique dash that teleports all players around you, allowing you to even kidnap people for kills, which is super fun. I think he is one of the hardest characters in the game by far though, just because he is super slow and requires so much game knowledge. But if you are up for the challenge, the community could definitely use some more Void players. If you are still curious and don't know for sure who you want to play in each game, do not get too stressed. It takes time. It took me a few tests until I really knew what I liked playing. Just remember, start by finding what characters you find fun. Then refine that into a role, and finally pick a character each test and devote your time to really getting good on that character. Or just play Oath. With that said, I hope you all are enjoying Supervive as much as I am, and I hope to see you around the channel. Thank you so much for watching, but until next time, I've got to peace out and Paz out. I'll see you in the next one.